Good morning and welcome back to the VIP seat. Today is July 29th. Your co-host, as usual, Jessie, Naor, and Preston Holland is here. Preston, I thought we were going to have a slow news week, but actually it turns out there's a lot going on, from MOSAIC rules to the absolute insanity that was the airlines the last week. We got a lot coming on this show.
Yeah, for a week that, frankly, at Oshkosh had very little to write about and to talk about, there's a lot of other things that are going on around the world of business aviation, commercial aviation. There is some stuff going on. I mean, usually everybody's up in the Hamptons at their house up there, not really doing a whole lot. Activity slows, transactions stall, but it's ripping. We're going full speed ahead.
Yeah, so speaking of that, you said there was an audible yell in the audience when the new MOSAIC rules were coming out there at Oshkosh.
Yeah, it was the talk of the town. For those that don't follow general aviation, so for those that are kind of novice listeners, this is below kind of um, the smallest light jet, right? This is kind of in the owner flown world as you talk about MOSAIC, but the FAA has been kind of flirting with and has been saying, hey, this is we're going to come out with these new rules and regulations when it comes to sport pilots. And there was a lot of there was trepidation from the general aviation community when last year was supposed to be the year that everything came out and then it didn't. And so everybody said, oh no, they're going to scrap it. I mean, I read a few articles and a few reports that said like MOSAIC may actually just be dead. Like it may just be DOA. So the FAA did come out this past week and they clarified exactly what MOSAIC is. So for those that don't know what MOSAIC is and don't follow general aviation very closely, MOSAIC stands for the Modernization of Special Airworthiness Certification. So it is basically the modernization of the light sport aircraft for anybody who follows that. So previously, under the previous rule set, there was a weight limit, there was a stall speed, there was a lot of stipulations on aircraft design and manufacturing. Two people in a light sport aircraft, and this is for people who fly under the sport pilot rules. So this is, you have to have a driver's license. You don't have to necessarily have a medical license like you do to fly a certified aircraft, but they expanded it. And it also, is on the back of this eVTOL revolution. Maybe we'll all get our own flying car. I think it addresses some of that. So people were very excited. And it really, frankly, was one of the only like news items for them. There's some other smaller stuff, but it was really the only like headline, like, wow, we have to talk about this info that came out of Oshkosh this year.
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on here. There's, first of all, probably a push from, first of all, I mean, there's not a lot of sport pilots and there's not a lot of aircraft that are certified for sport pilots. So that's part of what they've been working on. But the other big piece of this is the eVTOL space, because now they've made a path for powered lift, and powered lift is going to be part of the sport pilot program, so that eVTOLs with, let's say, only one seat in them can have throwover controls. So you can actually conduct eVTOL training now, where there wasn't really a pathway for that for training before. Obviously not surprising, given the millions and millions of dollars that eVTOL folks have been putting into the system. But, there's pros and cons to this. I love new technology. And then we're saying, okay, let's open this up for more people to learn, more people to create new technology. But in all honesty, it is rolling back some safety requirements for pilots. You're going to be able to fly, a Cessna 182 after having 50 hours and like one cross country flight. So there's some rolling back of safety. The FAA addresses this repeatedly in the notice. They say it's on their safety continuum. And for people who don't know this, I've said it multiple times. It's like my biggest calling card is 135 is not the same as 121 because of the FAA's approach to safety. They're saying, an airliner shouldn't be approved at the same level that a sport pilot or a sport aircraft should be. So this is them kind of pulling in more of that safety continuum process to this world. But I mean, it's going to be big for eVTOLs. I just hope we don't see any safety issues from it, which we may, because it's rolling back some things.
Yeah, I think the fact of the matter is that if you've ever flown in a light sport aircraft, like the difference between a light sport aircraft and 182 is not much. Like there is the performance profile from like how much stuff can I take in a 182. I can take 4 people. I can take a lot of stuff, a lot of fuel. I can fly a little faster, but the important parts, right? The takeoff, the landing, how you do weight and balance, for the most part, super similar to a lot of the light sport aircraft qualified out there today. So I think what it does is it expands the envelope to within what would be considered a safe range, right? We're not talking about flying. You can't go fly a business jet with a sport pilot's license, but it allows for those people that have a sports pilot's license to fly inside of that range. I think the other thing what it does is it allows for new entrants into the market. Because like before, you had to go through the certification process, and like it's a pain. I mean, go ask Epic, go ask Icon, go ask like all of these certified aircraft manufacturers in the last 25 years. It's really challenging to bring a clean sheet design and get it certified. But the problem was that light sport aircraft were seen as almost a joke, right? Like it was, you could almost drive there faster. You couldn't really take anything. By the time you loaded it full of fuel, it was you and like your dog. Like it was so restrictive. I think this allows for the bottom half of the market to actually create some interesting, viable products and bring them into the market. I think that's the exciting part. And for me, that's what I think is the biggest win here for people like myself, who I'm not buying $1 million Cirrus. Everybody who's at Cirrus, I'm friends and relatives with all of them. Love the airplane. Not for me. I'm not buying $1 million non-retract aircraft.
I love it.
So it allows for, yeah. But it allows for the bottom half of the market to become more affordable, but actually performant to a range that's like not silly, right? Like you're actually flying a truly GA aircraft, which I think goes back to the spirit of GA in the first place, right? Is to unlock accessibility to individual airports. I'm excited about that. At the same time, it is lowering the medical standards for higher performance aircraft, and you are creating a space and opportunity for some potentially not great activities. So I think it's, the FAA is going to have to really stay on this to make sure that it's, that they're monitoring the data. But we've got a lot of access to data now, so they can actually tell like, yeah, like this is not great.
But particularly the eVTOL space, which is a burgeoning market. This is opening up some possible air tour activity for sport pilots. This is opening up commercial carrying potentially of passengers, even though it's limited. We're talking 1 to 2 people. There's some carve outs for like demo flights and that sort of things. I'm all for moving us forward. Let's get new technology. I do want to see the eVTOL space actually take off. Like that would be fantastic. But, it's that balance between the new and growth. And there's some serious kind of risk here that could occur if the FAA doesn't really keep an eye on it, which, I hope they do. So we'll see.
Yep. No, agreed. And I think that they will. I mean, this has been a charge from every AA and every AMA, Gamma, Manufacturers Association, all the associations have really been pushing for some clarification around this. So I think it'll be important to see how this turns out.
But speaking of safety, man, what a heck of a week for the airlines. I don't even know which story to start with here because they have so much going on.
Yeah, it's freaking mess is what it is. I mean, so before the show, Jessie and I were going over what are we going to talk about. I know that you think that we totally shoot this all from the hip and you're like, oh, wow, that's so impressive. They didn't even talk about this. We do talk about it beforehand. And we actually forgot stories. Like there was so much craziness in the airlines that we forgot more than we remembered in this scenario. So it's pretty crazy. So running down the list, the one that really stood out to me was the near miss with the Delta and Aero Mexico aircraft. There's an Aero Mexico. My understanding is the Aero Mexico was coming in and almost landed on top of a Delta 737. And that was not the only crazy thing that has happened in the last 7 days from an in the air standpoint.
Yeah. So Delta, their other incident that they had occur was one of their crew members was arrested immediately after landing in San Francisco by Homeland Security. We're finding out now, apparently there's a sexual child abuse case pending against him. But that was pretty disturbing to a lot of passengers. Also, Southwest, they went into a nosedive to avoid colliding with an antique fighter jet. 2 flight attendants injured. Also, great reminder, always keep your seatbelt on. I know it's more comfortable not to, but this is the exact reason why every time I'm on a flight, I'm strapped in the whole time. If I'm not getting up and doing something, it's just good policy.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's, the problem is with a lot of this stuff is I think I'm going to start sounding redundant at some point in this podcast, but there is a lot of spillover that I talked about this a couple of years ago, that like the COVID ripple effect in the airlines is not like, we haven't seen the whole thing yet. Like, we're not 100% there. I think we're continuing to see, like, you look at this year, just at all of the craziness that's happened. And yes, social media, and yes, a lot of it's more visible. Like, I get that. But social media existed before all of the, before COVID. We're seeing kind of the tail end right now of all of these things that happened during COVID, training and people sitting on the ground and not having situational awareness and all of this, ATC training and layoffs and, a turnover in the pilot rankings. There's all of this stuff that is coming to a head. And unfortunately, we've had a couple of disasters this year that have resulted from it. And the trend is continuing. We're not out of the woods.
No, we're not going in a good direction. And I'm not going to be like alarmist and say it's not safe to fly today. That's not true. I mean, obviously, we're seeing a lot more of this stuff because of social media and all the things that get put out there. But that also doesn't mean we should sit on our laurels, because to be frank, these are really serious things happening. American Airlines having landing gear fires and people getting off the plane. There are things happening that shouldn't be happening. It's obviously lack of experience, a lack of staff. What you said is hangover from COVID, and we're just now kind of seeing it come to the forefront. But oh my gosh, yeah. Speaking of that, American Airlines landing gear fire. Did you watch that video of passengers getting off the plane with all of their luggage?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. I mean, I'm going to share this really quick so that everybody can see what we're talking about. But this is the Instagram. This will be linked in the newsletter. This Instagram of people coming down off of the emergency slide, and everybody's got a bag in their hand. I'm like,
look, there's a delay right here. There's no one for a while, and you're like, what's going on? A little kid, and then dad has 4 bags off his shoulder.
4 bags and a kid in his arm. It's like, which one's more important here, folks?
Or how about all the people behind you that are, inhaling smoke trying to get off the aircraft? It's just, it makes me so mad. Yeah. Big pet peeve.
This guy falls down with his kid in his arms. It's like, come on.
No, he just had a carry-on bag. I don't think he had a kid, did he?
I'm pretty sure he has a kid in one arm and a carry-on in the other.
And a carry-on in the other.
Like, come on, people. So, I've talked about this with my spouse. I have talked about this with friends. I'm like, look, if there's an emergency, like, getting off the airplane is the number one priority. Everything that you have in that bag is probably going to get covered by the airliner's insurance anyways, right? Yeah. Like, you're going to be fine unless there is like a family heirloom that like pictures of your grandma that you can't ever get back. And even then, like, pictures of your grandma or your life or those around you. Like, sorry, I'm going to pick,
let's pick and choose.
Pick one of these. But get off the airplane. And that's not saying, like, statistically, Part 121 flying is still incredibly safe in the United States. Like, it's, statistically still far safer than getting in a car. But there's a lot of stuff that continues to happen in the airline world, and we literally had so many this week that it was hard to count.
Oh, I even forgot the other crazy one. This one was in Spain, but there was a summer camp of kids. Almost 50 kids got taken off the airplane. I don't fully understand the circumstances. I think one of them was like playing with like an aircraft phone or something, which is not good. But they got kicked off the plane. And then their camp counselor is like thrown to the ground. She's got like bruises and blood all over her face. And then come to find out, the captain of that airplane was a 9/11 pilot trainer. He trained one of the guys who was the hijacker of a plane. I'm like, you can't ask for a crazier story. They had the kids like deleting stuff off their phone. Like, it's a great week to fly private. That's all I can say.
Yeah, no kidding. That's just, I mean, it's so sad. Like, all of this stuff is just like, I hate that it's happening. And I wish that we could do something as a country, as a industry to try and see if we can fix this. But I don't know. It's a mess. I think, well, let's go to some maybe a little bit more lighter. I don't know if it's lighter, but a little bit more comical news. Let's go to our Mile High Madness segment. For those that are just joining us, if you're brand new, this is the segment where Jessie and I find our favorite clips from social media. We insert them into the show. We get a good chuckle. We send it to everybody in our newsletter. And it's a good segment to send to your friends. So be sure to share it with your friends and say, hey, this is pretty funny. So Jessie's got a good one from a mutual friend of ours on LinkedIn. And frankly, like it's kind of sad, but it's also kind of funny.
Yes. So we definitely prefer to have like industry posts and things. So I'm excited to say we have a really good one this week. So Gary Dunn, president of Aviation Partners. This is something that
They're the winglet guys, by the way, in case you didn't know.
But I think we can all agree on his post. He says, okay, I'm often asked what living in Seattle is like. Well, currently it's like this. And for those who don't watch the video version, I'll describe. He's got a picture posted of a billboard that says, say no to Blue Angels. Too loud. What was this? War trauma and pollution. You know, it's just more of that people that don't like airplanes. I just don't know what to do with them. But the best part of this, I think, is the comment section. I commented myself that you just need one nicely placed sonic boom to knock that sign down. Gosh, there were some good ones here. There's always going to be detractors. Fortunately, you can't hear them when a Super Hornet's flying by.
That is awesome.
Peak commentary from the industry. Bravo. Even my friend Delray said maybe we should truck in some supporters who like loud military jets, and I am all for it.
Yeah, no, that is... All these people commenting are all friends. We love to burn some Jet A. As you know, on the VIP seat here, we are big fans of aviation and big fans of American exceptionalism. So this is exactly opposite to everything that we stand for as a show. So we love loud noises. We love representations of the United States military strength. So, you know, if you don't like it, this is probably not the right show for you.
Yeah, and Cameron probably won here. If we're going to waste taxpayer money, I want it burning Jet A.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Cameron texted me this afternoon. So, Cameron, I will call you this week. A great comment.
So that's mine for the week. Preston, what beautiful social media post do you have for us today?
So my Mile High Madness actually comes from Oshkosh. Again, this is probably one of the more exciting things that came out of Oshkosh. This is a public service announcement to companies and brands that are out there. Brand safe advertising is something that is very important and incredibly hard to monitor around influencer marketing. So be sure to watch videos ahead of time before you hire an influencer, or else you may end up like Cirrus Aircraft, who hired this girl, Irene. And to be clear, I don't know Irene. I've never seen Irene on Instagram before, but this video went absolutely viral of her basically getting fired from Cirrus. She said, here's the part that is the funniest to me. She says, I got fired by Cirrus Aviation. Well, Cirrus Aviation, the charter operator out of Las Vegas, is not who hired her to come be in their booth at Oshkosh. It's Cirrus Aircraft, the one that manufactures airplanes. And so they had invited her to come out. I guess they saw how many followers she had and how great that was, and they hired her out. She kind of says it, but not really. But essentially, she got fired because she didn't wear proper undergarments to be in the booth. And they said, hey, that doesn't represent our brand. We're going to have to sever our partnership. And I'm like, duh. Like, sorry, duh. What did you think was going to happen?
Well, to be fair, when you go back and watch her videos, you know, you don't really see like what's going on. You know, it's like neck down. So I was waiting to see how you were going to describe that on air for everybody, what the actual issue was.
Very politically correct. The way that you don't get sued.
But yeah, no, this was a fail on Cirrus's part. I feel a little bit bad for them as a brand, but also I don't, because this is what happens when you don't vet your influencers. It's just there are sometimes like there's something buried on the internet from like years ago that you wouldn't want the brand to be associated with. But if you go to her page, you so clearly can see from the content she's posting that something is just not right there. So like bare minimum, watch the last like 20 videos at least before you hire
Bare
people. Bare.
bare minimum. That was a good
I
one.
was going to say something about, don't be a deer in the headlights either, but I don't know. we're getting so off track from aviation today, but we just can't help it.
It was not cold in Oshkosh, I'll tell you that.
But we will post those links in the comment section so you can check it out for yourself.
That's exactly right. Look, and this one went viral, which is not great for Cirrus because it went hyper mega viral. So yeah, vet your influencers. Moving on to other things. This is a story that you sent me, and frankly, I'm still having a hard time exactly understanding like what it does. It's a guided visual approach. Garmin and Hughes have partnered on guided visual approaches. Jessie, can you walk us through what happened?
Yeah. So, and I had to also make some phone calls today, including my former chief pilot, because I want to make sure I'm wrapping my head around it. Because, hey, guess what? I'm not a pilot. I don't know how many people know that. I'm not. I do aviation safety, but from different perspectives. But anyway, I was talking to my former chief pilot. So everybody knows, there's precision, non-precision approaches. We know there's a lot of safety issues with circling approaches, unstabilized approaches. What Garmin has done, and they're partnering with Hughes, and I think this is absolutely incredible technology. They have basically created a non-RNAV approach for 31 airports. And these are the really high risk ones like Teterboro. I think JFK is on the list, Aspen, certain runways right now, not every runway. But you can get this upgrade. It's about $500 to $2,000, depending on which aircraft you're flying. But you're essentially getting a guided approach if you're doing visual, if you're circling. I think this is an amazing safety tool. It's not going to solve every problem with some of these airports, but I think it's pretty amazing. And it's really interesting to see that Garmin and other companies are doing this and not the FAA. They're really layering on this huge safety feature to something that generally the FAA would have done.
General aviation enough credit on the safety side. Like it's not, they don't wait for the federal government to mandate something. They observe and then they implement. And it's a very small community, which is part of what is great about it. And those of us that work in it love it. That is part of the appeal here, is that when things like this happen and you have some safety events that need to be taken care of and dealt with, they get dealt with in the private sector. And so this is another great example of that. 31 approaches at 25 airports that include Teterboro runway 01, Van Nuys runway 34 left, Truckee runway 29 and 11, which Truckee is really tricky to get into from, according to my friends that fly it a lot, Scottsdale runway 21, and many others. So it's guided visuals. It's a little bit kind of outside of the box thinking on the safety side, but I think, kudos to Garmin. They're always pushing the limit when it comes to safety. That part is very exciting and love to see them continue to innovate there and not abandon general aviation, because it's, in a market in which a lot of companies like Garmin could totally say, look, it's great and all, but like we'll just let Honeywell and the big, subprimes do it. Garmin's really double clicking and doubling down on it. And I think that their structure from a structure standpoint, how they have layered their management, like proves that, the Marine and the aircraft division are totally different from the watch guys, right? Like it's totally a different group. Like they have totally different, business units and stuff like that, which I think is exciting. Let's continue to see safety be at the forefront.
Well, and one thing too I want to mention for, the non-pilots or non-pilot language folks out there, when you're flying into an airport, you have these guided systems, right? There's precision approaches is what we call them in some cases. RNAV is a precision approach. What this has done, it's basically gone outside of the FAA designating a precision approach at an airfield. So it's giving you information in the cockpit that's useful, but it's not necessarily FAA approved. That's also an important note for pilots out there. Don't expect that ATC is going to know anything about this, because they don't. If you say that you're on, this Garmin approach, they'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just do what I tell you to. Don't argue with me. Just do what I tell you to. But, I think it's an amazing tool. It'd be interesting to see how it gets implemented and if the FAA ever gets a little frustrated with this, because these precision approaches are FAA approved generally. The training programs, particularly in 135, are approved training programs that show you how to use these systems. This is something new. It's outside of the box. I think it's cool. We're going to have to see what measurable safety impacts it has, and if the FAA pops its head up and goes, wait a second, it looks like a precision approach. Shouldn't we have something to do here?
Yep. Yeah, very true. Well, speaking of precision approaches into airports, I'll tell you one airport that's not going to get a precision approach for a while is a brand new airport that is apparently expected to open in 2037, maybe. We'll see. It's been in planning stages since 2006. Jesse, what can you tell us about the new Las Vegas, Southern Nevada's newest proposed airport?
Yeah, so they haven't come up with an official name yet, but there's a public hearing next week for the first official comments. It is happening. Las Vegas is getting a secondary airfield about 23 miles away from the strip, so a little farther away. But what is huge about this news is that we actually haven't seen what is called a greenfield, brand new airport built, for commercial purposes in the U.S. since 1969. Dallas
The
Fort Worth.
same year we went to the moon, allegedly, if you're into that kind of thing. I'm just kidding. I'm totally a lunar
How dare you?
believer. I'm just kidding. I'm not into that.
I mean, that's wild, though. I don't think I even realized that statistic. I mean, it's been, like half a century since we built a new airport. And you know how many more aircraft operations we've had since then? Like, that's absolutely wild.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of all of the regional airports. Like, there's a lot, like Chattanooga, been around since before 1969. All the crazy South Florida ones that have commercial air service, been around since the 50s and 60s. I think that the general underlying comment to that is it's true that aviation really got stuck post World War II. Like, there's a giant boom, and then it just kind of like stuck, right? Like radar nav technology, stuck. Airport building, stuck, right? So like there's all this stuff. I would be curious to see kind of some sort of a correlation study between like what actually causes that. I think it's like a combination of maybe some overbuilding and then coupled with a lot of regulation that comes in kind of during that time, right? You have all of the three-letter agencies that got built right before that period, and all of a sudden they started kind of getting out of control, with a lot of their power. So I think that that's it. That's a super interesting stat. The one thing that I would be curious about, and this is the thing that I don't know, nor did I research, but this is what me thinking out loud, is what about like private airports and private airstrips, right? So I know of like multiples in Texas that have been built in the last 50 years, right? Like that's after 1969. I wonder what that statistic, if it's like it has to have commercial air service, maybe the runway's a certain length, because like there's other air parks and places where people live and general aviation airports that have definitely popped up since then.
So I have a little inside knowledge on this. So I used to manage Baltimore Heliport, which was actually a public use airport. So that's the designations between public use and private. Private, you can do whatever you want with, it's private property. Public use means you have to let anybody come in there because you're going to get government funds to improve your field. Like we got an aviation station covered by Maryland Aviation Administration at the time. So I think there's around 19,000 private airfields, if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw that number earlier. The number of public use airports, though, has been kind of stagnant. In 2000, there were 5,300 public use airports. There's only 5,200 today. So I think public use is going down, which makes sense because everyone hates airport noise except for all of us who love it. But the private use, I mean, it's private property. You can do whatever you want to. I do wonder if that's grown or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that that's an interesting stat. Hopefully this helps bring aviation forward. But again, it's been in the plan since 2006. So like, I'm not holding my breath. It's 30 miles south of Las Vegas, which is a long way away.
They're saying $6 billion to $14 billion. One of them is going to be the longest runway in the US.
Probably 12 to 28 billion, right?
Double
Let's
that.
be honest, right? Or more.
But look, I mean, Vegas is growing. So I think if anybody needs it, I think they recognize that. And their current airfield is just, I mean, they're at max capacity. Plus, I mean, it's the desert. So there's probably a lot of space.
You know what that means, Jessie, right? It means NBAA is stuck in Vegas for the next 100 years. Oh no. I really like the guys at NBAA, but as someone who's going to just go ahead and throw the opinion out into the ether this is not even necessarily mine, but it's the number one thing that gets talked about in every dinner conversation is, when is NBAA base gonna finally leave Vegas? I have had that conversation 6 times in the last 2 weeks. Like, I'm not kidding. People are not stoked that it is perpetually stuck in Vegas. And if this airport gets there, we will be there for decades and decades and decades.
See, I'm a blackjack player, so I'm like all about Vegas all the time. Unless there's another destination that has just as fantastic gambling, but that's just me. I'm supposed to be there for work, not gambling.
I think most everybody that goes there is also there for work, but not really. But yeah, it's hopefully this airport goes through, and hopefully, I wonder, is that closer than Henderson Exec? Is it closer? Henderson Exec is not close, but it's not
close.
That far. And there's
I don't
another.
think it's not 25.
No, so I don't know. Maybe it just makes sense to expand that. I don't know. I'm not an airport administration person, so.
No, I say more new airports everywhere. Not even there.
Over there, everywhere. You know
Everywhere.
where they don't like. You know where they don't like airports? Europe. But you know what? We don't have any more tariffs between us and Europe. You like that transition? It's a pretty good transition, right?
I think that was fantastic. Our last story of the day: European tariffs. We've all dodged a bullet. Well, some of us have dodged a bullet, not all of us.
There is a whole lot of people who have been on a whole lot of panels talking about tariffs over the last 4 months that just got all of their time back. I mean, there's a few people in specific that I can think of that were on a lot of panels out there. I will let those people go nameless, but Asan is one of them from Canada. He has been on a lot of panels talking about tariffs, and it looks like Europe is going to get a 1-for-1 reduction, 0-for-0 tariffs. So 1-for-1, 0-for-0 with the European Union. So doesn't include the United States or the United Kingdom, which in June had a similar tariff policy. So basically all of the EU has now gotten a 0-for-0 exemption, which I think probably was driven, if I had to guess, primarily commercially, but we get a really nice benefit in business aviation.
Yeah, so, I think it's 15% on all other goods, but aircraft and aircraft parts are going to be 0% tariffs. So that's great news. Dassault specifically had a pretty rough quarter Q2, and they were pointing to not only supply chain, which everyone points to for issues, but also that they were going to face critical issues if there were basically any tariffs on their airplanes coming to the United States. But looks like that's no longer an issue unless our administration changes their mind in 6 months, which you never know. I hope not. But yeah, it's good news. We still have some more tariff deals to work out across the world, but at least this one seems to be off the shelf for now.
Yeah, I think that I think it's a net positive. I think that there was a lot of uncertainty. I mean, you had a lot of manufacturers that were having really tough guidance on this. Daher was one of them. Dassault Falcon Jet was another one. GE was another one. Like, there was a lot of, Rolls-Royce was another one. There's a lot of like uncertainty that was coming out of this. And I think that for aviation in general, business aviation specifically, I think it's really important for us to have free trade between the different countries. I think however you feel about the general concept around tariffs I think that there can be a bifurcation in your opinion, and you can say, hey, call it critical supply chains, right? Like, tariffs probably, and I would put aviation in a critical supply chain bucket. You can say like, hey, we want to tax the crap out of cheap t-shirts that come out of China. Like, I get it, right? You want to bring back American exceptionalism, all of that. But for the free trade of aerospace and defense parts, or for business aviation parts, I think it's really important that we have kind of free flow and don't restrict that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like geopolitical risk all across the world. I think some of the times tariffs are a good way to get people to behave the way you want them to. I don't think that we really need the EU. I mean, especially after they've signed, all the war machine funding that was needed for Europe. I think at this point, like, they're behaving. So I'm glad that we're kind of taking that off on them. I wasn't for it, but it's good. Now we'll have more free trade, and hopefully we can figure the rest out with Brazil and all the other countries that we're still pending with.
Yep, exactly. Well, it's good news, and it's a good day to be in business aviation. If you work in business aviation, if you work around it, if you're an enthusiast, if you're an owner, thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to both of us. What would mean even more is if you would share it with somebody in your network. So hit the share button on however you're consuming this podcast and send it to somebody that you know inside the industry and say, hey, pretty spicy takes. We are going to start having guests, so I'm going to go ahead and tease that. If you think of a good guest, not yourself, don't nominate yourself, nominate somebody else, right? And maybe they'll nominate you back. But if you can think of somebody, send it to us. You can find Jessie on LinkedIn. It's Jessie Naor. You can find me on LinkedIn, Preston Holland. Send us a note, drop us a note, let us know who you want to see as a guest on the VIP seat. Like and subscribe, hit the bell button, do all of the things. 5-star reviews helps us get out to more people. Sign up for the newsletter at the VIP seat. Like us on LinkedIn. I've done enough asking. Now it's time for you to safely arrive at your destination. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.